Okay, welcome to our spring 2023 Community Engaged Project Grant and Make Art Grant application walkthrough. Literally what we're going to do today is walk through each grant question by question and look at some sample applications. Since it's such a small group, I would be delighted to take questions as you have them. You can either put those in the chat or just unmute yourself and ask. Just a reminder that then those questions will go in the recording. So I'm going to go ahead and just jump on in by sharing my screen. All right, does everybody see RISCA's website here? Perfect. So this is RISCA's homepage. I always like to start here because it's always a good, here's how to navigate our somewhat confusing grant website that's in the process of being redone. So again, you'll just come right up here and click on grants. And that will take us slowly, because my partner and I are both in video meetings right now, to the grants page. And here you can see a list of every grant we offer, and then whether or not they're open for application right now. Artists are right at the top because y'all are the most important. Don't tell anybody else I said that. So there's two ways you can get to the application, which is an online portal. So you can either click here to access the grant portal for individuals. Reminder, both of our grant application portals look basically exactly alike. I'll point out how to know you're in the right place when we get there. So make sure when you're looking for these grants for artists, you're clicking here for the grant portal for individuals and not here for the grant portal for organizations. Another really easy way to get to the grant application page is simply, let me open, somebody join the waiting room. There we go. Simply to click on through to the actual grant itself, which has all of the grant guidelines right here to read. Also, you can access the portal right here. Click here to access the grant portal. One other thing that I'll point out in this grant page for each grant is if you scroll all the way down to the bottom through all of this great guideline language, you'll see a whole bunch of links. So there are links to a PDF of the grant guidelines, a PDF of the grant guidelines in Spanish, a PDF of the grant guidelines in English large print, the question list. So if you want to just take a look at the questions before you go into the grant portal, the required timeline template, the required budget template, and last but maybe most, the community engaged grant rubric. So every grant that I offer is evaluated by a panel based on a rubric. The rubric that they're going to use to score your application is right here. Definitely look at it. All right, I'm going to scroll back up. And then this piece here, this guide to understanding RISCA grants, is something super cool that's pretty new. We commissioned MJ Robinson, the local artist, to create a graphic novel guide to our artist grants. So there's also some around IRL. We're distributing them to, some arts organizations and libraries. So I think AS220 has them and Steelyard. But anyway, it looks like this, and there's a version in Spanish as well. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and click here to access the grant portal. So it looks just like this. The big difference between this one and the one for organizations, besides the URL, is this piece right here. Welcome to the grant portal for individuals. On the organizations grant portal, it says organizations. Other than that, they look exactly alike. So I'm going to go ahead and log on as applicant Molly Flanagan, not as administrator Molly Flanagan. So you'll log in. And if you've been a grant panelist for RISCA recently and I haven't changed your settings, it will look like this. If that happens to you and you're looking for the application page, you'll just come up here from role and click applicant. If you have not served as a panelist, you'll just come right into this dashboard. If you've applied previously, it will have this piece down here with historical requests. So these are all of the applications that I never submitted. And here, and it will have your active requests as well. So the easiest way to start your application is just to click apply right up here. And this will take you to all the grants that are currently open for application for individual artists. There are 3, the Community Engaged Project Grant, the Make Art Grant. Both of those have April 3rd deadlines, and we'll be looking at those today. And then also the Artist Open Studio Tours Grant, which is rolling until we run out of money, so that you can apply for whenever. So as you can see here, my button here for apply is gray and not blue because I already have an application started. So it's telling me I cannot start a new application. I already have one started. Can I start one? Yep. So if I click on it, it will tell me, hey, I have a new application. So I'm not starting a new one because you can only submit 1 application per grant cycle per grant program. So I'm going to click right into my existing application that I've already been working on. You can also get there easily once you've started your application by coming here to your home page. And again, I just hit the little home button to get to the dashboard. And I'm going to look at the CEPG first, coming here to Making Days at the Library and click Edit Application. This is another important piece. You can tell by this that this will save your application. You don't have to write it all in one setting. I'll remind you again of this, but there's a really important button at the very bottom, Save Application. So make sure you hit Save Application before you go like think about your support materials or, you know, take a little breather. One thing I always recommend, because technology is going to technology when you least need it to technology, is to write your application in Word or even in a Google Doc or some other word processing application, and then cutting and pasting it in just so you know that it's saved somewhere. This also makes it easier to reuse for a future grant application. Because why write it twice if you don't have to? All right, so we're up here at the top and we'll see in the application that it is due by April 3rd at 11:59 p.m. Another word of caution, when it says 11:59 p.m., what it really means is that when the clock ticks over to 11:59, the application process turns off and you will not be able to hit submit. So hit submit before 11:59 p.m. If you're one of those super last minute people, which when I was in your shoes, I was, I hate past me for that, but let's be honest, that's how it was. Just letting y'all know, hit submit at like 11:55 because you just never know. Preferably the day or a day before, but I'm being realistic. Then we'll have the next piece is the guidelines and template forms. So if you need all of these different versions of the grant guidelines that you just saw on the website, they're right here, as are the really important budget template and timeline templates, which you are required to use as part of this application. We will look at them today, and we have a video on how, a more detailed video on how to make a budget as well. First section, pretty easy. There's some small ways you might get tripped up. Eligibility, US residency. This means you're a legal resident of the US. It does not mean you are a citizen. You have to have a valid tax ID number, which could be your social security number if you're a citizen. It could be an individual taxpayer identification number if you're a refugee, if you're an immigrant, if you're a temporary resident. What you can't be is someone on a student visa or a tourist visa, right? You have to be a legal current resident that's able to work in the US. The second piece is that you have to be a Rhode Island resident and you have to have been a Rhode Island resident for at least 1 year. What this means, one way you can figure out what your residency is if you've recently moved or if you split time between two places, is that Rhode Island is your primary residence. It's the address you use on legal forms for your car registration, driver's license, or state issued ID, where you vote, that sort of thing. Are you 18 years of age or older? Yes. Are you currently enrolled in an arts degree seeking program or attending high school full-time? This does not mean you're taking a workshop at What's Your Writers Club or a class at RISD Continuing Education. This would mean something like you're a current illustration student at RISD, or you're getting your theater degree at URI right now. So it's a full-time or part-time degree seeking program, which something like a course at What's Your Writers Club or a continuing ed course or something at Steelyard, that's not a degree program. And then here, you want to make sure, this is where we get tripped up, right? People just get in the habit of clicking yes. You need to make sure that you're not enrolled in that arts degree seeking program. That's important, makes you ineligible. And then lastly, is this project initiated and organized by an artist? So for example, if you are doing a project with Rhode Island Fringe at Wilbury Theater Group, that's a project that is within the support and structures of a nonprofit that receives general operating support from RISCA, that's not eligible. If you are renting the space and self-producing a show in their space, that's okay. They just can't say they're presenting it. It can't be a program of theirs. So space rental, okay. Something that's the project or receiving support and structure from an organization or a nonprofit, not okay. And if you have questions, email me and I can help you figure it out. Okay, basic information. Again, relatively easy. Preferred name. So when you're registering for your Foundant account, you need to use your legal name, the name that will be on your W-9 if you get a grant. Otherwise, it will delay your grant payment and totally mess up our systems, right? It's just going to make your grant payment come like a month later. So use your legal name when you're registering for Foundant, the name that you prefer to be called, or is your artist name, or if it's something other than your legal name, here. Pronouns, not required, but we ask them just so we can make sure we're referring to all of our applicants using their pronouns that they prefer. Project name. This is, these two next pieces, project name and the short project summary, are the pieces that will show up in things like our council book when our council is approving or denying the applications. It will show up in our marketing materials. It will show up in the big spreadsheet that we post on our website every grant cycle saying what projects got funded. So these things, you want them to be clear for somebody who is only reading these two things completely out of context of the rest of your application. So Making Days at the Library is the name of this project. And then describe your project, again, in no more than 3 sentences. This will go in public records. So for this project, what I have written is Namerson will lead weekly art making days at the Central Library in Warwick for youth ages 8 to 12. These making days will include gentle instruction, a wide variety of materials, and space to imagine. These classes will be in the afternoons and free to all participants and their caregivers. So this is pretty clear. It's what's going to happen, these art making days, it's who it's for, youth, where it's going to happen, and when. It's just, boop, quick reporting. Next piece, amount requested. This needs to be rounded to the nearest dollar between $500 and $3,000. So a change not from last year, but from the previous iteration of RISCA individual artist grants. No partial grants will be awarded. So ask for the amount of money you need. You'll either get that or you won't get a grant at all. We won't be doing any partial awards. This amount requested also needs to match the amount you request later on in the application and in your budget. So those numbers all need to match. I will notice if they don't. Okay, questions about that stuff yet? Great. Okay, here's the good stuff, the narrative questions. So one big change, this is the third grant cycle, second year of our new grant programs, is that if you feel more comfortable speaking or being on video rather than writing, you're invited to submit your answers to these questions in one of three ways, sort of more traditional grant writing style, like you'll see here, or an audio or video recording. If you choose to do an audio or video recording, it needs to be a single take, no edits, not, just you saying the answers to these questions. If you send us, a fancy promo reel, it will get kicked back to you as ineligible. So just answering the question in the same way you would if you were writing, just speaking. The preferred format for that is a YouTube link. You can mark it to private, you can password protect it, whatever works, but the YouTube link is the best way for folks to access that. Okay, so then there's a couple of main questions. Again, 1,000 characters. These are really short answers. Be short and to the point. First thing, project description. Describe what the project is, when and where it's happening, and who is involved in the project. So here's my answer for these making days. I will lead weekly art making days at the Central Library in Warwick for youth ages 8 to 12. These making days will include gentle instruction, a wide variety of materials, and space to imagine. Again, these are the same sentences that you heard earlier in the project summary. That's fine if that's repetitive because the project summary has that specific public records idea. I'm an experienced teaching artist that works to activate youth to create based on their own imaginations. Each week we'll focus on a different material and, ooh, there's a nice typo, and we'll start with some instruction on how to use the medium. Then there will be an imagination prompt to start the creation process. I will then move around the room, helping with the participants as they need. At the end of the 2-hour session, we'll spend 15 minutes sharing our creations. These classes will be in the afternoons and free to all applicants and their caregivers. All materials and supplies will be provided and each class will stand alone so participants can come to one or all of the sessions. So this is pretty short and sweet, but it's also very clear exactly what's happening, who's doing it, an experienced teaching artist. Here's the style that this teaching artist works on, activating to create based on their own imaginations. Here's the basic structure of the day. So it tells you exactly what's happening in really clear and short terms. And again, 1,000 characters, it's not very long. That does include spaces. Okay, then the next question, who it's for and why. Describe the community or group of people you are creating this with and why it is relevant and important to that community. Be sure to include demographics and geography of your intended audience. So this is really asking, it's pretty who it's for and why you're doing it with this group of people. So here's a little bit about that for this project. Warwick's Library is a welcoming space for residents of both the town and surrounding areas. This project is designed for youth ages 8 to 12 and their caregivers, which includes a wide diversity of people. Often, youth this age experience art either as audience members or creating specific final products with little room for imagination and experimentation. This project enables young people to create what they want with support and participation from their caregiver and a qualified facilitator. So a little bit about Warwick and the library itself, who it's for, right? Youth ages 8 to 12 and their caregivers. many other angles of diversity beyond that. And then why. This why part is important, right? Because these are arts grants. The panel will be artists. They care about the why. So here's the why. And then this last piece is just some straight up demographics of the area. And then additionally, some explanation about why you would do this in Warwick when you're looking at these demographics versus Providence. Warwick's demographics show a small city with a primarily white population with a median income of $73,757 and a poverty rate of 6.2%. Due to Warwick's proximity to Providence, the majority of opportunities for art experiences include traveling to Providence rather than embedded in their community. So we see this a lot in Rhode Island, right? That Providence is where all of the things are happening. Sometimes we also see people be saying, well, everything should happen in Providence because that's where the most people are and it's accessible to the most people. We strongly disagree with that. Art should be everywhere in all of our communities across the state. So it's not a bad thing that you're in Warwick or you're in Burrillville and it's got a lower population numbers, straight up smaller town, but also that the demographics might be different, right? Rural, in Rhode Island terms, rural is also an underserved community. Don't be afraid of that. This demographic information came from the Census Bureau. It came from literally Googling Warwick demographics. And I will say that most of the applications I see do not have demographics like this. You can describe the who it's for in whatever ways work for you, because you might not have your target audience might not be a specific geographic community in the way this is. It might be the full state, but a specific other demographic aspect of that. So don't stress about getting a whole lot of really specific numbers. Make sense? Great. Okay, and the final narrative question, defining success. Describe what a successful project looks like to you and your collaborators and how you will measure that. Please think beyond numbers of attendees and post-event surveys, and keep in mind that we do not expect you to spend a large amount of time or funds on evaluation. We recommend thinking about what success is for you and then figuring out what things indicate that. So these grants are small. They're $3,000. It's a small state. We're gonna know if you just are lying to us, right? Just saying that. It's a small state, we're gonna know. But that being said, we often see grant applications with asking for really robust evaluation processes. And it's $3,000. If you did a really robust evaluation process on your project, you would spend the entire $3,000 on the evaluation. We do not want you to do that. We want you to spend the money doing the actual project and thinking about what things matter to you rather than what the more formal indicators might be. So, and that's going to be different for every project. So really think about what your goals are, how you define a successful project. It's going to be really different for the Make Art grant as well. So in this case, I have defined a successful project. For a successful project, I will hold 10 2-hour-long sessions once a week for 10 weeks. I hope to have a minimum of 5 youth participants in each session, though can support up to 15. Success for this project includes the youth feeling engaged and creative and empowered to use their imaginations. That's super squishy. You can't just count that, right? This will primarily be measured by observation, both of the participants during each session and of their creations. So not a ton of surveying, not spending a ton of time. It's just really the teaching artist being an expert teaching artist and knowing that their students are engaged. I will also ask for feedback using a survey for both youth and their caregivers at the end of 10 weeks. One survey, that's it. So this is specific and has some hard numbers in it. I'm going to do 10 hour-long sessions and I want to have at least 5 people attend each of them. but it's also really squishy and gets to the why of the project, right? So it's really related back to this, who it's for and why, this impact, about making sure youth are enabled to create what they want to create and use their imaginations. So it's squishy and non-squishy, as I like to say. Questions about the narrative questions? All right. Planning and logistics. So again, here's where you're going to need the timeline and budget template that again are linked on the website and linked up at the top. And this is what it looks like if the panelist views it on a document viewer. In real life, I've just attached an Excel spreadsheet that's really just filling out the template, the Excel template that's been provided. A note, our online grant system does not support any Mac file types. So if you give me something in numbers, it will just not, it won't even upload, it won't be readable. So make sure you either export it, if you're a Mac user, export it to a PDF or to an Excel. All right, so here's the timeline for this one. I'm gonna zoom in a little. And so it's super simple. You don't need to make it massive. You don't need to do all of the planning, right? It's a $3,000 grant. We don't want this application to take you 20 hours. So July, the whole month, logistics and planning. And here's what I'm going to be working on: confirming the dates, preparing the marketing, plan specific curriculum, work with the library. Next month, continuing with logistics and planning, but sort of the next steps in that. And again, vague, big buckets. September to December, run events weekly. That's it. December, evaluation. So this is important because it relates back to the measurement of success. Have participants complete a survey, and then think about successes and what could go better next time, right? So the idea that this project will probably happen again if it's successful. But again, you don't need anything more detailed than this. You don't need every single thing outlined. We don't want you to spend 20 hours writing this application. We don't want you to force you to be significantly more planning heavy than you have to be. Make sense? Okay. Budget. So this is page 1 of the budget form. I will, in a second, put in the chat a link, and this will be in the follow-up email as well. We actually have a link to a 5-minute video explaining in much more detail how to fill out this specific budget form. So I won't get too much into detail because that already exists, and it's great. It's not me, even. So here we just have the revenue side, and it reflects exactly what you read in the application, that there's no admissions or box office or tuition or class workshop fees because the events will be offered for free. That being said, you are welcome to charge admission, to charge for the classes. That's fine. Making money is okay. We know frequently a $3,000 grant is not enough to cover the projects that y'all are doing, right? So we can be part of other revenue from this. So I'm getting, but also we can be the only funder for something, which in this case it is because it's a pretty small project. So no other revenue, RISCA request amount, $2,000. And then here's the expenses. And again, it's pretty simple. Payment to applicant, right? Artists and arts administrators have value. Their time has value. Please pay yourselves. There's a reason it's the first line on the budget. Cash expenses, payment to applicant, $1,500. And then a little bit of a breakdown of the approximate time it will take for this teaching artist to do the project. And then the only other expense they have is materials and supplies for art supplies. So this is going to look really different based on your specific project. So don't be afraid that it doesn't look exactly like this. Don't be afraid if the entire amount of money is here in payment to applicant. If you don't need anything else, you don't need anything else. And the panelists are all working artists or arts professionals, so they will know, they will be able to read this with some level of understanding of how you exist in the world. So those are those two. Let me grab. That's not right. I'll send the YouTube video in the follow-up email because you're not going to watch it now anyway. That way I have it all easily together. So then you've attached the timeline in an Excel or PDF format here. You've attached the budget here, also in an Excel or PDF format. And then there's a couple of questions. In-kind donations. So this is donations from people that are not you, that are not money. You may not have any in-kind donations. That's fine, right? Doesn't matter. In this case, the space will be donated by Central Library in Warwick, 3 hours per week for 10 weeks, total of 30 hours. So that's pretty simple space donation. Then what would the RISCA grant funds be used for? So in the past, we had a more complicated budget form. We don't like complicated budget forms, so we made it easier, where you had to know exactly what the RISCA money would be going for, and it got really confusing. We don't do that anymore. It's just the budget. We ask you to list here what the RISCA grant funds would be used for. So in this case, the project doesn't have any outside funding, so everything in the budget will be paid for using RISCA grant funds. Boom, done. That's it. If you do have outside income, you'll want to say the RISCA grant funds will be used for these 2, 3, 4 line items. Make sure in the budget that they are, on the expenses side, eligible expenses. So it breaks it down really easily right here on the budget. These are eligible expenses for RISCA, ineligible expenses. If you have questions, particularly about equipment purchase, please let me know, because it's likely that your equipment purchase actually counts in materials and supplies for our legalese purposes. And then just a sort of, these are the things that we really can't use RISCA funds for. Again, this is all in the grant guidelines as well. It's pretty self-explanatory. For more details, see the grant guidelines. You just have to confirm that your funds won't be used for that. Okay, now we're on to support materials. These are arts grants. Support materials matter. So link to artist website if available. If you don't have one, that's fine, don't stress. It's just there to make it easy for the panelist and the applicant. I don't even want to know what this would lead to. So then we have up to 10 support materials. So these support materials should be things that, looking at the rubric and looking at your narrative, are really directly supportive, help you tell the story of why you should be doing this project in this way now. So in this case, the first thing that you need to attach is a support materials list, which is exactly what it sounds like. Again, remember, it needs to be a Word document or a PDF, not a pages. So in this case, we've only used 6 of the 10. If you can get it done shorter, you don't need to use all 10. However, most artists, most people do, so don't be afraid to use all 10. So here's what I have rounded up to support this grant application. The applicant's short bio and resume, a letter of support from Warwick Library, just saying, yes, this is happening. Yes, we're donating the space and we're excited about it. Lesson plans for each session, including the imagination prompts to be used. So this speaks to a couple of review criteria. can open this up. Maybe we can open this up. You can do it. There we go. Really, really heavily leads to feasibility and likelihood of success. Things like a resume and a bio help with that, but also having lesson plans, right? That really says, yes, this is going to happen. But it also speaks to all of these criteria because you can see exactly what the engagement is going to be. You can see that this has been created specifically for these folks, that sort of thing. Photos of applicant and former students, including their work from past teaching projects. So this applicant has said that they're an experienced teaching artist. This might be their first time running this project specifically, but they've done other teaching artist projects previously. They're going to toss in some pictures from that. Then we have a letter of support from Karen Givers, the primary caretaker of a former student. So, you know, could be a parent, could be a grandparent, could be the primary caretaker, whatever. Writing some letter of support about how this teaching artist impacted their the youth and why they wanted more programming to be happening. And then because we do care about a teaching artist's quality of art making, we want to make sure that they're capable of a high level of, you know, artistic output in this context. There are photographs and some explanations, captions of the applicant's artwork. That is a PDF that's several pages long with multiple pictures. Okay, and I didn't actually make all of those support materials. So just an explanation of what they are. So they're all attached here. These can also be things like, here's where if you have a promo reel, you would put a link to it here, that sort of thing. So that kind of stuff can go in the support materials. This can be links, this can be files, this can be whatever. So we'll go all the way down to the end. Then we'll ask you who are your elected officials, but we're really only asking about your US representative. So it's currently Congressman Cicilline or Congressman Magaziner, but luckily we go by congressional district because who knows for those of us in my district. And then a whole bunch of legalese that essentially says you're telling the truth and that you'll do the thing you say you're going to do. So you're not lying. You'll click yes. And then again, very different pieces over here. Save application. So if you've gotten halfway through, or even if you've gotten all the way through, but you're not quite ready to submit, you want to check it out, do one more read, have somebody else read it, save application. When you're ready to submit, by 11:55 p.m. on April 3rd at the latest, you'll hit submit application and it will go just magically into the world. Okay, so I'm going to stop briefly. Questions about Community Engaged Project Grant before we get into the Make Art Grant. Cool. Okay, Make Art Grant. So here we are again on the RISCA website. Again, it has all of the grant guidelines all the way down. Review criteria that is broken out more in the rubric, which is here. Again, we have the three formats of guidelines, the question list, the timeline template, the budget template, and the rubric. The rubric's a little bit different for this one, unlike Community Engaged Project Grant, which is really about serving non-artists or new artists. This one is about the artists themselves that's making the work, right? So it's the top piece is about the artist and not about the community, the biggest score. So we'll come in here to my application for Make Art grant called Viewpoints and Climate Change. One thing I will also point out is that you can apply for both the Make Art grant and the Community Engaged Project grant in the same deadline. They just have to be for 2 different projects, which is pretty easy because they're 2 very different grants. So here we are again at the application. It follows a very similar, pretty much exactly the same format. Tells you when it's due by, we have the guidelines, we have the budget template, we have the evaluation rubric again, these same residency questions, except I got them right on this application. So legal resident of the US, lived in Rhode Island for at least 1 year, 18 years of age or older, not currently enrolled in an arts degree seeking program. And this project is initiated and organized by an artist outside of the support of an institution. And then again, basic information, exactly the same. Preferred name, pronouns, the project name, which in this case is Viewpoints and Climate Change, and then the project summary that is for the quick public documents. So for this project, for my Make Art grant, here's my project summary. Name Namerson, Nombre Namington, and Nomen Naminator will work towards creation of a new site-specific performance piece. The 3 artists will use viewpoints, a technique that uses improvisation and observation within time and space for ensembles to create work together, to create a piece around a theme of climate change and flooding. So this is great because it says who's going to do it, right? It's 3 artists, it's not 1 artist, collaboration. It's a site-specific performance piece because a lot of folks don't know what viewpoints is, which is fine, right? That's a very specific kind of process used in theater and dance that I know about because I have an MFA in theater and I worked with a lot of the viewpoint folks. So we explain viewpoints because there's an expectation that not everybody knows what it is, including the folks that are on the panel, right? There might not be a theater person of this type on the panel. And then what it's about, climate change and flooding, very important in Rhode Island. Amount requested, again, $2,500. That matches the budget that will come later. So the narrative questions are pretty similar, but really focused on the artist rather than the sort of external wise. And again, invited to submit the answers, either written or spoken or a video recording. Same rules about the audio or video recording, no edits, just a straight talking of the answers. If it's highly edited or if there's music or other video added, we'll bounce it back to you. So project description, name Namerson, Nombre Namington, and Nome Naminator will work towards creation of a new site-specific performance piece. Again, that's the same sentence from above because it's really clear. The 3 artists will spend time together developing work and experimenting using viewpoints, a technique that uses improvisation and observation within time and space for ensembles to create work together. The artists will work around a theme of climate change and flooding, with a long-term plan being to perform this piece at Salty Brine State Beach in Rhode Island. During this period of creation, the 3 artists will create a framework for the performance and an outline of the script. For 3 months, the 3 artists will meet weekly for 3 hours. These rehearsals and planning sessions will alternate between experimenting and creating material at Salty Brine Beach and planning and scripting sessions in the dance studio. Outside of time together, each artist will spend time researching climate change and flooding impacts in Rhode Island. So one thing I want to flag for you all here is that this project description makes it clear that this grant application is for a small part of a larger project. So the large project is to create this performance work that will be performed at Salty Brine State Beach. However, during the 6 months of funding for this project, the artist will create a framework for the performance and an outline of the script. So there won't be a public performance, nothing will get done as it is in the art world, right? We understand that artistic projects don't always, but can take longer than 6 months and cost more than $3,000. So if you're proposing specific parts of a larger project, just make sure you're specific about what will get done, what your goals are for this time period. But it's totally fine that it's part of a larger project. Okay, impact. This is all about y'all. Why is this project important to you as an artist and person? How will it move your artistic practice or the business supporting your artistic practice forward? So this can be very squishy. It can be very not squishy. It's about you and why the project is important to you. Remember that impact on the artist is the most important, heavily weighted evaluation criteria. So really be thinking about why you want to do this and why it's going to be useful for you in your artistic career. So here's what this person has written. Climate change is a crisis that is particularly pressing in a state with so much shoreline. This project will enable the three of us to use art making and performance to think about this imminent and slow-moving disaster in a place that will be deeply impacted. So it's why the topic's important, but also why the topic's important for this artist to do here in Rhode Island, right? It's not just climate change is important. Climate change is important to these three artists, and here's why. This grant will also enable all three artists to set aside time to experiment and create, which will deepen our artistic practice, allow us to learn and use new techniques, and lead to a much stronger final performance piece. Spending time in development together is something typically not afforded as we create new work, and will allow us to deepen our collaboration, increase our artistic skills, and try new things without the immediate pressure of perfection. It also enables us to create a language and process as we work together, which will last through all future collaborations and co-creations. So climate change is important, but also being able to spend this amount of time just experimenting and not have to create a whole piece and perform it within these 6 months will also impact the artists in this way. And here's why it's important, right? So it's both here. It's the subject matter and then also the actual artistic practice separate from the subject matter. This again will vary because it's going to be really personal based on your application and what your application looks like. I have a sip of water. Oof. Okay. Then defining success, same. It's going to be really, you're going to really need to think deeply about what a successful project is for you, because we want you to be defining success. It's not what I think is your successful project. It's what you think is your successful project. So again, describe what a successful project looks like to you and your collaborators and how you will measure that. What are your goals and what you hope to learn? So this is an important piece, what you hope to learn. Keep in mind that we do not expect you to spend a large amount of time or funds on evaluation. We recommend thinking about what success is for you and then figuring out what things indicate that. So here it is, quick and dirty version of defining success for this Viewpoints in Climate Change project. We will have a framework of the performance and the outline of a script by the end of this development phase. So there's like the really hard goal of like, this is the exact output. It is what we will create. It is not the final product. It's not a polished piece. It's an outline of a script, but we're going to have that done by the end of this development phase. Other measures of success for the three of us include learning to use viewpoints as a method for creating new work, creating strong and open communication and collaboration between the three of us, and to have thrown ourselves into experimentation, embracing some failures as part of the process. We hope to create a process for moving this specific work forward to completion, but also a way of working that we can use in future collaborations. And if when additional creators join in specific projects. Success looks like the three artists feeling safe to experiment and create, pushing their artistry forward and creating an engaging and interesting performance. So there's a lot of pieces, right? These are really squishy things. Creating strong and open communication and collaboration. That's an awesome indication of success and goal of success for artists that are working in a collaborative process. That's super valuable. But it's not we're going to create this thing and here's how we're going to measure it. Something else that's nice is that there's a piece in here about creating a process and what this will enable these artists to do longer term around creating a process that will last throughout future collaborations and future projects. So it's here's what we're going to learn in this time, but here's also the longer term impact and how we're going to take this forward into our artistic practice and how it's going to push our artistic practices forward and our collaboration forward into the future. Yeah, questions? Okay. So again, we have the timeline and the budget. They're the exact same templates that you've already seen for community engaged project grant. And again, really simple, right? So July 15th to October 15th, weekly rehearsals, all the artists, 3 hours a week. Research on our own, all artists, 1 hour a week. And then at the end, a meeting to plan the next phase of the project. And that's it, right? Just a really broad overview of what's going to happen during this project period. Okay. And here's the budget. Looks exactly the same because it is the exact same template. Again, no other revenue because it's just 3 artists working together. There's nothing happening that's open to the public and this project isn't getting any other donations or grants. So $2,500, which is the same number that was in the amount requested. And then here's the expenses. So it's a little bit more complicated because there's more people involved. So payment to the applicant, $750. And then again, the breakout of the time, 3 hours of rehearsal, 1 hour of solo work per week for 12 weeks, total of 48 hours. Then outside artistic fees, here's the same amount, stipends for the 2 other artists. They're also both getting $750. Again, stipend for the 2 other artists, total of 48 hours of time each, relates right back to this. And then materials and supplies. Planning and rehearsal supplies, and one thing I would like to say is this is an estimate, right? I don't know how much large paper costs. I don't know how many Sharpies I'll need. I don't know what the props are, but I'm going to guess that I'm going to need those things based on my previous experience doing new performance development. And I'm going to guess it's going to be about $250. I don't know exactly what that money is going to be spent on. That's fine. Right? The budget is a plan, and we don't need you to do a full shop, right? We don't need a dollar for dollar accounting of what that $250 is. You don't need to say, I'm going to need 12 reams of paper and 3 Sharpies, and here's how much they cost at Staples right now, right? Don't spend that time. Just make your best guess. That's all a budget is. It's your best plan. It's your best guess. RISCA is not going to be mad if you spend the money a little bit differently than you put in your budget, right? We know that our project, the budget is a plan, just like the application is a plan. Things don't go to plan. we know that you're not going to spend the money exactly as you thought you were going to originally. That's fine. Don't stress about that. If you're going to change your budget drastically after you get the grant award, just send me an email and we'll figure it out. But probably it's okay as long as you're not, as long as, you know, so for example, if this group of 3 collaborators were like, you know what I really need? We really need a 4th collaborator for this process. We're going to change the stipends so it's split 4 ways instead of 3 ways. Totally fine. If this group of 3 people was like, we're not going to do a project about climate change and we're not going to use viewpoints. Instead, we're going to put on a Music Man really quick. Not fine, right? Because it's very outside the spirit and it's very different than the project that was proposed. So small tweaks within, totally fine. Totally changing your project, not fine. If you have questions, you just send me an email and we'll talk about it. So again, this adds up to $2,500. And then we go back to in-kind donations here. Dance studio rehearsal space donated by 1031 Studios, 18 hours total. They've donated the space. That's so nice of them. Wonderful. No outside funds. So again, it's just what's in the budget. I don't need to break it down here because it's already in the budget. And then I understand and agree that it won't be used for any of these things. Okay, questions so far? All right, support materials. So again, the goal of these 10 support materials is to support the application and to relate directly back to this review criteria of artistic impact and growth, feasibility and likelihood of success, and artistic vibrancy and intention. Here we have our support materials list, which is a PDF, and it has 8 pieces. It is the resume of the lead applicant, the resume and website of the collaborator, website and resume of the 3rd collaborator, letter of support from 1031 Studios that confirms that they're donating the rehearsal space, a link to a video called Dance Theater Piece, which is a past performance by the lead applicant, PDF of reviews of past work by the 3 collaborating artists. So they're all artists that have had work that's been reviewed in local media. We've put together a nice PDF that might have 5 reviews. It might have 1 review. It might have 20 reviews. Probably not 20, probably 5. The panelists are going to be reading approximately 40 of these, so probably not 20. The 7th support material is information about Salty Brine Beach, which might include why that beach is important to climate change. And then a letter of support from the State Department of Parks and Recreation with permission to use the beach for rehearsals. And that's it. And then again, this dance theater artist has a pretty robust website with videos of past works on it as well, which is here and available to the panelists. And all of these are uploaded or linked here. And then again, my elected official, CD2. Yes, I am telling the truth. And then again, save or submit. I'm going to hit save because I'm not quite ready. All right, y'all. Questions, thoughts, concerns?
I have questions.
Yes.
This is my first time doing anything individual. Everything I've ever done has been an organization. So I'm like, but wait. I just want to make sure I understand. So I don't need any matching funds.
Nope.
Fantastic. 1. If I apply, let's say, like you were saying, I apply for research and collaboration for like part 1 of a project.
Mm-hmm.
Then can I in the next fiscal year apply for part 2? I
You
don't
sure
have to.
can.
Okay, so I can plan for each fiscal year if I have, like you said, 2 different projects for the 2 different types of grants.
Mhm.
Can those also work similarly? Okay, so technically if I have 2 separate projects, they can be in the system at the same time,
Yes.
one a fiscal year. So there's nothing about me having 2 grants at the same time. Okay,
No.
this is good. This is fantastic. Okay.
It gets more complicated if you get our general operating support for artists grant, but for the purposes of these 2, yes, you can apply for both and get them.
That's what I'm used to. I'm used to like all the different machinations of dealing with a beast. I'm not a beast. I'm just me. Here's just to clarify, all project activities must take place in Rhode Island. So if I am working with collaborators on, let's say, a narrative short film, and the collaborators are from Rhode Island and Massachusetts and New Hampshire, if it's planning project, does that has to take place in Rhode Island, or the project itself has to be filmed in Rhode Island?
The main activity has to happen in Rhode Island. So if you're planning a film and you're having a planning meeting and it's on Zoom, that's fine. That counts because you're in Rhode Island.
Got it.
Usually. Not always. It's close enough.
All the time. I'm all the time.
And then, but I mean, like, if you needed to have one planning meeting while you like magically were shooting a movie in New York, that would we wouldn't take your money back. But the film, like if you're applying for funding to film something, the filming would need to happen in Rhode Island.
Okay, fantastic. And I just have one more question. I'm sorry, I don't want to hog time. But
we have 25 minutes left in this session. So I always leave like more than enough Q&A time.
I just have one more question. And take place in Rhode Island, fiscal year, got it. Budgeting, got it. Okay, I've forgotten what the other question was, so I'm pass.
Okay. In the meantime, I put 2 links in the chat. These will both come to you by email tomorrow, so don't stress about them. One of them is a blog post that has all the ways to get grant support. So it has a link to a YouTube playlist that has all of the grant recordings of all of the grant workshops, as well as the budget video. This will be up there tomorrow, not today. How to fill out a budget template link directly, which I also linked directly to that YouTube video about how to fill out the budget. And then it also has all of the other grant workshops, etc., that we have offering at drop-in office hours, and then a way to sign up if you have more questions to meet with me one-on-one. That being said, we have 23 minutes left. So if you have questions now, I would be delighted to answer them.
I have a couple of questions. I apologize if there's background noise in the coffee shop while on the road. So I think some of these have been answered. If there are budget things that have no expenses, it's okay if it's mostly zeros, right? I had a question about rehearsals out of state, but that's fine as long as the scope of a larger project, if things are out of state for other parts of the project, it's fine. It's just what's literally being funded by RISCA, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So hypothetically, if I have applications out for fellowships or grants that might help with other parts of the project or even this part, but I haven't heard back yet, how would you like us to handle potential other sources?
So you can, when you're looking at the budget template, you can put those grants, if you feel, regardless of the way you feel about them, you can put them in the revenue side, and then just note in the notes area that they're not confirmed, that you have applications out, you don't know.
Okay, great. And then, yeah, the only other question I think you've answered too, and like if there's a collaborator who hasn't been identified yet or confirmed yet,
That's
could be
fine.
listed as like a to be determined person. Okay, well, thank you.
Hi.
Hello.
I have a lot of questions for you, specifically about my individual project. But I would prefer to do that one-on-one with you.
Great.
And is that possible on Zoom? I am disabled, so it's really difficult for me to get anywhere.
Yes.
Okay, so we could set up a time to do online. Okay.
Yeah, I'm still doing basically like 98% Zoom because
Me too.
COVID is scary for me for
Yeah.
a variety of reasons.
Me too, yes, okay. But one of my questions is, I need to adapt my studio a little bit. And if I needed to do that with the project money, like, what would you like an actual quote from a contractor, even though my husband can do it for far cheaper? Or
Yeah, if you know your husband's going to do it for far cheaper, tell us how much it's actually going to cost you.
okay,
We
all right.
we trust you.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I will spend way more than $3,000 with a contractor. So
Yeah, that doesn't matter to us. We don't need you to get a quote from a contractor if you're not going to use one. We can use the quote from your husband.
okay.
And then I will also just flag that generally, with one exception, using RISCA grant funds to build permanent physical things is not allowed. The one exception is for accessibility. So there you go.
Yeah, that's my only goal, so I can make art again.
Yes.
So, okay, great. So I will contact you and we'll set up a time to do the online thing. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, in the blog post, there's a link at the sort of near the bottom that says to meet with Molly about community engaged project grants or make art grants, sign up here. And if you click sign up here, it'll take you to a Calendly that'll just automatically generate a Zoom meeting for us.
Okay, nice. Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah.
I remembered my question. It's one of those days. I don't know if any of you can relate. But there's actually two, and Stephen made me think of it. In your opinion, if you are, I feel like grant applications, there's nothing is a sure thing. You're applying for funding, you're applying for fellowships. And if I do put that in my expected revenue, it's just as expected as, it's going to snow tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
It's best to just be upfront and transparent with everything you have out there, even if you don't know if it's going to happen or not.
Yeah. Because
I just see someone reading that and saying, well, if this funding all comes through, they'll be fine. And they won't need the 2,500 from RISCA,
This is the good part about getting all people who work in the arts on the grant panel, is that they'll read that and be like, oh, that's a super competitive grant.
Okay.
So
they'll know, they'll get it. Mm-hmm. Okay. And the other question I had was, one of my projects right now is the exact end results is vague in that I need to do research and I need to do work with other people to say, is this a narrative film? Is this going to be a documentary film? Is it going to be a musical? It's very vague and there's a lot of different outputs. And it's okay to say these are the options? Okay.
Yeah, because
it's all based on
what you would be working on.
Yeah, exactly.
In that time period.
Okay.
Your specific outcome might be, this is what the storytelling script, we'll figure out what the storytelling structure is.
Okay, that's
great.
That's fine. That's fine. I'm used to this event, this many people of this age, and so this is good.
This grant was created by artists.
Okay.
And you can tell because it's actually useful for all stages, not just I'm almost done with something, Now I'm going to get $500 to put it in the public rather
I
than.
love it. And it's malleable. This is fantastic. This has been great. Thank you, Molly.
It's good to see you.
It's good to see you. All right, that was it from me.
Yeah, and so schedule a meeting with me. We also have, if you need, we also have drop-in office hours the Friday and then the Monday, Friday before and the Monday of the application day, where we'll just, it won't be me for the whole time. There will be a RISCA staff person on Zoom from I think 10 to 4, both of those days for last minute questions. Email me with your questions. Set up a meeting. Like, this is pretty much all I'm going to be doing until the grant application deadline. And it's like, I don't get to make any decisions. It's literally my job to help y'all. So don't be afraid to ask your questions. I assure you that they've probably been asked before. Okay. All right, enjoy the rest of the day. It's still light out because it's March, which is great. And I look forward to seeing your applications or meeting with you or seeing email questions, however we interact next time.
Super.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.